Hello, welcome to Books and Brews,
the place where beer and literature meet.
with your host, the seer of the beer, Chris Powell.
And Laura Vosica, author of the Bluebells Chronicles.
Each month, we invite a guest author to read their words and talk about writing while sipping beer specially paired with their work.
This month's guest is Charles Graham. So sit back
Pop a cold one
and dive into some books
and brews.
Welcome to Books and Brews, episode number 85. In a fun twist today, we have Charles Graham here in the house doing a live interview. We were going to read To the Sheep, but it's pretty muddy out there. So we'll just read in the house. So welcome, Charles. It's great to see you. And normally I talk with Chris about how our month has been, but it's been a difficult month, and we're just not going to talk about it. A lot of travel. So it's not been a bad month, but it's been a lot of travel, graduations. We had to go back to Minneapolis, Mother's Day, birthdays. So, and in an exciting twist, we have lots of new lambs out there. I think we have five in the last week. So today we have with us Dr. Charles P. Graham. He is a science fiction author, semi-retired chiropractor, and Navy nuclear submarine veteran. And do you know Bremerton, Washington?
Today we have...
Really?
No.
I'm shocked.
Well, I know of it.
Okay.
Yeah, I know of it.
My house, when I lived in Bremerton, it actually looked right down on the Puget Sound Naval Shipyard.
Yes.
And in fact, one of my students was a nuclear engineer on the subs there. So I thought that was very interesting. After serving aboard the USS Plunger during the Cold War, he built a 46-year chiropractic practice in St. John's, Michigan. He is a former U.S. Air Force Auxiliary Civil Air Patrol Squadron and Group Commander, search and rescue pilot, and ground team leader. He has written and published the Survive series, Marooned on Planet Tau Ceti,
Tau Ceti.
Tau Ceti, First Alien Contact, and the soon-to-be released Galactic War. They are available on Amazon, Barnes & Noble, and Audible. When he's not writing or treating patients, he develops puzzle games on Steam and Google Play under Simple Software Solutions. Yes. Welcome, Charles. You have a busy life.
Yes,
I have said this often on my program. I have yet to meet an author who is not interested in about 8 to at least a dozen other things. So, and that's probably why we're authors. So the first drink we're going to do is called the Treehouse High Canopy Sour. So we're going to start with 2 ounces of bourbon. We are going to get a little bit of honey syrup. So I made the honey syrup by mixing a 1-to-1 ratio of honey and water. I didn't measure. So are you sure you want to drink what I make? I'm not a huge believer in measuring.
I'm game.
No, this called for black walnut bitters. I put walnuts in with bitters, and we'll see. I'm a believer in the creative school of cooking and cocktails. So optionally, you can put an egg white in this. I'm not going to, even though we're getting 16 eggs a day from our chickens, because I don't feel like it. So we're going to shake all of this without ice. We're going to add ice and shake it again. And we're going to strain it into a rocks glass and garnish it with a walnut or a lemon. So let's see. That is an interesting color. Garnish with walnut. Cheers.
Cheers.
What do you think?
Actually, very good.
I kind of like it.
Yeah,
it's a little bit tart.
It's good.
I would drink that again. I'm not normally a fan of tart drinks, but I like that one. We are ready for your reading. Go ahead.
This is the book. The book one is about how these 7 survivors landed on the planet and after the ship was destroyed. And they had discovered a intelligent alien creature, I guess you'd have to say. Actually, they're like they call them Pidoggs. They're kind of like a combination between a pig and a dog and a boar, that kind of thing. That's what they look like. They have patchwork coloring in that, so they blend in really, really easily with the grasslands. So this is where they first become acquainted.
Okay.
As Jay moved through the grass, he planned the design of the antenna mast in his head, paying little attention to the surroundings until spotting a flattened area in the grass ahead that caught his attention. He approached it cautiously, observing an unmoving animal resembling a large dog lying on its side. Upon closer inspection, the creature looked like a cross between a dog and a wild boar. The head was large in proportion to the body and resembled that of a large hunting dog, but the animal had a wider face. The mouth and nose were a little like that of a hunting canine, except that the end of the snout was more pig-like, rounded, flat, and in the end, with tall slits for nostrils. The body was thicker than a dog's, but thinner than a boar's. The body was very muscular, with thick and relatively short legs for an animal of its size. Jay was reminded of the legs of a rhinoceros, thick and very powerful. All four toes had on each foot had 6 centimeter long heavy claws. The tail was about a half the animal's body length, with a broad vertical, almost paddle-like blade at the end. The mouth was frozen in a snarling position, as if the animal was in great pain when it died, exposing large canine teeth that looked very sharp. Unlike a wild hog or boar, this animal did not have tusks. Jay thought he could confirm that the animal was a male because of how it was lying, but he didn't want to touch it to find out for sure. Glancing around to see whether it was safe to approach the creature, Jay slowly inched closer. He noticed that the eyes were partially open and glazed. He continued his cautious approach until he reached the animal. He tapped the upturned hind quarter with his foot and stepped back quickly. No response. He sidestepped around to the head of the animal to get a closer look. The head appeared unusually large. He thought of, at least on this side, I don't see any wounds. I wonder how it died. The animal was a little over 1.5 meters long, with light brown and dark beige and black patchwork coloring. The patches of color were irregular in shape and size. So this is what was probably following me yesterday, or at least one like it, he surmised. There was no wind at the moment, but Jay caught a rustling sound as dry grass shifted a few meters off to his left. Startled, he instinctively looked toward the source of the sound while placing his hand on the hilt of a knife in his belt. He saw an animal that looked just like the one at his feet, but with a different arrangement of patchwork coloring. This animal was slightly smaller and making intense, direct eye-to-eye contact with him, its large golden brown eyes unmoving and unblinking. "Oh, crap," he whispered as fear began to gnaw at his core. His heart was racing and it felt like it might burst from his chest. Jay couldn't tell whether the creature was ready to spring or was assuming a defensive posture. The animal was slightly crouched, but otherwise not making threatening movements or sounds. The animal broke its gaze with Jay for a moment to blink and glance at its dead companion, and then quickly shifted attention back to Jay. Seemingly watching for a reaction from Jay, the dog-like creature slowly lowered itself to the ground and put its head between its front legs, alternating between watching Jay and occasionally glancing at the dead animal lying at Jay's feet. Never having been around animals much, Jay was slow to realize that the dead animal was probably this creature's mate, and that it had been mourning the loss until Jay had unwittingly disturbed the final respects. His fear and heart rate had subsided somewhat, and he considered that this encounter might be the only opportunity to interact closely with the wildlife on this planet, so he decided to take a chance. Taking a deep breath, he exhaled to calm himself and started talking softly and gently to the crouched animal, consoling it like a young child. He knew there was no way the creature could understand what he was saying, but he hoped that the calming tone of his voice offered comfort. He watched to see what it would do, not considering that staring into an animal's eyes was usually a sign of aggression. It lay there unmoving like an earth animal, showing submission to an aggressor. Slowly, Jay backed up. He stopped after retreating about 3 meters to allow the animal to approach the dead creature if that was what she wanted, and intently watched her actions. The female ears pricked and raised her head as she watched Jay move away from her mate. Sensing that Jay was no real threat, she shifted her focus to the dead mate. She slowly stood and approached the dead animal. She then lay on its side. She lay by its side, muzzle to muzzle, with body-to-body contact. Many minutes went by. The female did not stir. Continuing to talk softly, Jay slowly reapproached the female and her dead companion. He stopped roughly 1 meter from the dead male's head, directly opposite that of the female. Only her eyes moved to watch as Jay approached. He continued to talk softly to the creature as he lowered himself to the cross-legged sitting position on the ground. Emboldened by his actions, Jay relaxed somewhat, but was afraid to press his luck further. Having lost many friends under Copernicus himself, he empathized with this animal. Watching the female grieve over the death of her mate, Jay continued to speak softly, offering her words of kindness and sympathy. He wondered to himself, man, what am I doing? This is really stupid. Why am I talking to her as if she were human? Am I crazy for doing this? Maybe, maybe not. He just felt it was the right thing to do at the time. He sat there for many minutes, softly talking and watching her. When she started to get up, Jay stopped talking. She slowly rose to a sitting position. The animal met his gaze with sad eyes, looking down at her mate, and then looked back at Jay. She acknowledged Jay and accepted his presence as a witness. Paying no further heed to Jay, she lightly placed her right paw on the head of the dead male. She looked down at her mate and made a soft, low-pitched rumbling, a moaning sound with distinctive sound patterns at regular intervals. She then lifted her chin toward the sky and gave a grief-stricken howl. She paused for about 10 seconds and repeated the same sound sequence and howl. It wasn't until she repeated that sequence once again that Jay realized that the sound pattern was exactly the same. He was astonished. Language, chanting, singing, whatever it is, it's phenomenal. His attention was totally riveted on her. The female removed her foot from the male and stood. Once standing on all four legs, she closed her eyes and lowered her head until her nose touched the tip of her mate's nose. Keeping her nose close to the male's nose and with her eyes closed, she stepped back with only her rear legs and stopped. Bowing? She's bowing to him. Jay was incredulous. Her actions were difficult for him to believe, but there they were. It was an actual bow, not a stretch like a dog yawning after an afternoon nap. It appeared to be a bow of respect. She pushed back with her front legs to rise to a standing position and didn't open her eyes until fully upright. She made the same soft, low-pitched moaning sounds once more, except she added a bit more to the end. She let out a sad wail of a distraught being. Jay realized that her actions must be some grieving ritual. It was as if she were performing a well-rehearsed ceremony. He had heard of animals on Earth that showed grief for loss of mates, but this behavior was far beyond that. The understanding that her mate was dead was readable on her face. She not only behaved as if she was grieving, she also looked like it and took action on it, both vocally and physically. Jay also felt that she didn't accept his presence there, but wanted him to be there to witness the act and to share in her grief. Unreasonable as his interpretation seemed, that was how he perceived the situation. He couldn't help thinking that she held much more intelligence than one would expect from a wild animal. Jay felt genuine sympathy for her. She stood momentarily and sat back on her haunches, staring at Jay with sad, unblinking eyes.
Very nice. That was a very memorable scene when I read the book, and I should tell you, I read it yesterday. Kind of
fresh in your mind.
It's very fresh in my mind, but that was a scene that really stood out. So when you sent that to me, I was like, that's a great choice because it's so poignant and he's scared. She doesn't, and how do you pronounce the creature's name?
Pidogg.
Pidogg. How did you think that up? I mean, apart from the obvious pig dog.
Well, that was it. I just thought, well, what does it look like? And since that is one of the naming ways that biologists can name an animal, of a new creature, other than the scientific names.
Okay.
That's how I just came about it. It looked like a dog, looked like a pig, looked like a boar, head rhinoceros, legs, had a vertical paddle tail, almost like a beaver, except turned on its side. So it was.
You couldn't fit beaver in there too somehow. I kind of got a kick out of it that even within the book, it was almost a little bit of breaking the fourth wall where they're like, that's a really stupid name.
Yeah,
It's
exactly.
like, so what? It's my name.
Exactly.
It's what I picked for it. So, but Pidogg, that doesn't flow off my tongue. So as I was reading it, I almost stumbled over that every time. So it's neat to hear you say it. Now, what I found interesting about the world you created is very similar to ours. And I'm not a huge reader of sci-fi. It seems to me a lot of times sci-fi writers and movie makers create these very barren worlds. Why did you choose to make it so like ours?
Well, because for one, we have to survive on it. We have to be able to live. We have to be able to breathe. What I did make it very impossible almost to find food. Where they landed was nothing but grass, miles and miles, meters and meters, whatever you want to call it, kilometers of grass, nothing but grass, from horizon to horizon. A few trees here and there. There was no water, there was no rivers, there's no lakes, there was almost no bugs, nothing when they first landed. So I made it very difficult for them. In fact, when I made it, I was thinking, how am I going to get them out of this? Because I didn't plan it like some authors do. They had synopsis, how they want it to go.
Yeah.
I kind of did it more like Stephen King. I just sat down behind my computer and
Started
typing,
writing.
just imagining it up, and then I sorted it out later. But yeah, it was a bit of a challenge. So that's how I did it. I challenged myself to put them in a situation and figure a different way to get them out of it.
I kind of did that. Some of the people in my book, I inadvertently, because, you know, plotter pantser, I'm more of a pantser too. And so they had to go spy on Carlisle in the 1300s. Their arch nemesis showed up. Well, of course, he's going to shut the city gates. He can't not when he knows that the people he's seeking are in the city. And then I just went, what have I done? You know, I've written myself into a corner. I've written them into a corner. But the thing with historical fiction is I like it to be very accurate, whether I'm reading it or writing it. And so by dumb luck, and this has happened to me many times, I started researching and I discovered something in history that solved the problem for me. So I won't tell you what it is, but there is a way out of the city of Carlisle and in England. And so when we visited there, I asked the ladies at the tourist center, and they're like, that exists? We didn't know that it exists. I'm like, well, do your research. You wrote this now in part because you have this extensive survival training and search and rescue. Did you write it to kind of use some of that, or just that's what you know, so that's what you wrote?
You know, before I wrote any books, you know, I did a little bit of studying on what to write about. And one of the things that some authors had said is write something that you're familiar with.
Right.
And that's how I started.
Okay.
Something I was familiar with, and then I just added all the fiction on top of it.
Yeah.
So
I think an awful lot of fiction is names are disguised. That's about it. You know, fictional setting. So as a search and rescue, how long did you do that for?
20 years.
20 years, and you were flying some of the search and rescue planes too, right? What incidents stand out to you?
Well, most of the flying that we did were false alarms.
Really?
You know, it's called an ELT, an emergency landing transmitter. An airplane sometimes can land hard and it'll set it off. And because its signal goes up to the satellites, you know, and it's constant, it's just a beeping sound is what it is. But it's there all the time unless it gets shut off or the battery goes dead. And so, but it can interfere with other signals. And so, you know, that are real. And so we have to find them and get them to shut off. So, you know, I have been on real missions where your airplane did crash and people were not alive, you know, on the ground. That's what we're trained to do, is to find missing aircraft and sometimes missing people. We've done that before. We do that from the air and we do that from the ground. I've done both. So I lead a team out into the woods and look for missing children that have wandered off from campgrounds or whatever, that kind of thing. So yes, we've done that too. So. Okay.
And I have to ask you a very serious question. You know, I'm living in the Appalachians. Are Dogmen and Bigfoot really out there?
I've never seen one.
So you will neither confirm nor deny.
That's exactly right.
Probably wise. What prompted you to start writing after all these adventurous careers you've had?
Just a bucket list thing. You know, I had thought about it and just never was able to take the time, you know, practice and everything, busy. Because it takes time to actually develop, you know, the stories and everything.
Right.
And I just did it. But when I start something, I usually don't want to stop until it's, you know, near completion.
Right.
When I first started, it took me 28 days. I had 75,000 words already printed on there, but it took me a year to refine it. So.
Yes, my first book I wrote for NaNoWriMo. Are you familiar with that? I think it's defunct now. I think they've quit, but it ran for about 20 years. It was the National Novel Writing Month, so NaNoWriMo. And it was every November for 25 years. And that's the goal. You know, everybody, 95% of people say, I want to write a book. I'll do it someday. And so the originator of NaNoWriMo said, okay, November is the day. November 1st, you start. You have 1 month. If you write 50,000 words, you win. And so I think I ended up with 53,000 words. It took me a month, so longer than you. But it did take me a lot longer to edit it. And that's writing, honestly, I think is the easy part. Editing is the hard part.
It's the hard part, exactly.
Yeah.
Punctuation, question, curly question there. quotation marks, that kind of thing.
Right,
So-
right. Yeah, I had one where I don't know if I switched programs in the middle or how exactly it happened, but I had some of them were straight quotation marks, some were curly. That was a major pain. But do you run into problems with consistency issues, like just making sure everything's flowing and you didn't change someone's hair color or age?
I didn't have a
or-
lot of problems with it, like, because I did it so quickly.
Okay,
I had still fresh in mind. But when I went back to edit, then it was, a little bit more difficult because I had to try to remember what I had written.
right.
So you have to review it. And, but then I would change things. I'd take like the chapter, and I'd move the chapter around, because I didn't think it
Yes.
fit here because I found some things that would fit better,
Mhm.
before that chapter when I added to it.
Right.
So there was a lot of that back and forth. And so it was tricky. Because then I had to make the story contiguous, and so that it flowed nice and even.
Yes.
That was probably the most difficult part because I'd come up with an idea and think, well, this part doesn't fit if I use this idea, so you have to change it.
Mhm.
So,
Yeah, that's for me. And I just said this, I was talking a couple days ago with an editor about all the various kinds of editing. And I said, this part for me is like wrestling a 12-armed octopus.
mhm.
You fix something here and an arm comes and slaps you upside the head and says, now that messes up what happens
Exactly.
later. So we're going to move on to drink 2. And I have to admit, I plugged it into AI and I said, here are the things that are in this book. Give me some cocktails. I think it made some up. I'm not sure if these cocktails existed before AI created them for me. The Growing Friendship Cucumber Cooler. We are going to put in 1.5 ounces of vodka. We are going to put in 3 slices of cucumber. We are going to muddle the cucumber, which means, so 3 slices of cucumber. We're going to take the muddler and we are going to muddle, which just means doing that. I assume that gets some flavor in there. We are going to add the elderflower and very little of that, only 1/2 ounce. We are going to go get some ice and shake this with ice after I muddle a little bit more. We're going to shake this with ice in it. And we're going to strain it into tall glasses. I don't think this is going to be a whole lot per person, but that's fine. So here it is. What do you think?
It's different, but it's good.
Can you taste the cucumber
I
at
can
all?
taste the cucumber.
I
yes.
forgot to put the mint leaves in. You want a mint leaf?
Sure.
I think I would try that again. I also totally forgot to put in the soda water. You can see why Chris does that.
Actually, it's pretty good.
I do like it. I'm not sure.
Yeah,
I
it
feel
makes a
like it's
difference.
missing anything without the soda water. So go ahead with reading number 2.
A little background again about the story is that when these survivors left the destroyed ship, they all landed in different places. They lived together and they had to get together. One person in particular, Chris, landed first. He thought maybe that he was going to be alone because he was the first one off and hadn't seen anybody else into the deep room. So he ended up seeing that there were some capsules that had crossed the horizon with some parachutes. So he took off after them. Well, this part of the reading is part that Chris does not even know that they made it down, but they made it down near a lake that has a lot of animal life around. So this was the executive officer and a xenobiologist that managed to get off the ship, the very last ones that made it off alive. Caitlin Clayton Carver is the XO's name. Caitlin Clayton Carver, the XO, opened the locker where the water was stored and reached in to remove the container. She shook it. Turning around with the container still in her hand, she said, "We're almost out of water. We have to get more. It's going to be days or maybe a week before the rest of the survivors arrive." Miranda gave her a frightened look. "I can do without washing for a few days." Caitlin responded, "We don't have enough for drinking, let alone washing. We have to replenish our supply or we risk dehydration and death. Look." Caitlin shook the can and poured less than a half a liter into a clear cup, setting it on the table. She then set the container on the deck near the locker and looked at Miranda. Miranda realized their dilemma and shouted, "I can't go out there. You saw those animals. They're huge and dangerous." Looking down at the deck and then empty water container, she was on the verge of tears. Caitlin walked over and put her hands on Miranda's shoulders. "We have to have water, and I can't do this alone. I need you to watch my back while collecting and filtering the water into the container. It wouldn't do for any good for have me attacked and dead now, would it? It won't take long to get the water once we reach the lake. Miranda bit her lower lip to keep her chin from trembling. She turned and walked to the opposite side of the capsule and faced the bulkhead, hiding her frightened expression. Caitlin said softer, I'm as frightened as well out there. I'm as frightened of what's out there as you are. I need you to be strong and vigilant. I need your eyes and ears watching and listening for danger while I'm stooped over getting the water. Have you ever watched those nature shows back home? Predators hang out near the water holes and attack their victims when their backs are turned toward them. I'll have my back to the land while filtering the container. I'll be totally vulnerable at that point. I need you. Miranda slowly turned toward Caitlin. She wiped the tears that were streaking down her face. Caitlin's heart went out to Miranda, but she held firm. She knew they had to take the chance to get the water they needed, and it was much more dangerous to do it alone. Lowering her eyes to the deck and avoiding Caitlin's eyes, Miranda murmured, I'll do my best. Caitlin retrieved the .22 rifle, made sure that it was loaded. She had Miranda retrieve the water container and filter, and they exited the capsule. The day was warm, the sun was high, and the light breeze came from the lake. There were only a few wisps of high clouds in the bright blue sky. The pungent odor from the animals drinking at the lake carried on the wind to assault the women's olfactory senses. Keep a 360-degree lookout and watch for any movement in the grass. They may be approaching us, Caitlin warned. The women walked as fast as they could through the tall grass toward the lake. They were both nervous but watchful of everything that moved. The breeze was coming over the lake, so the animals there didn't know about the women's approach until they were within visual range. The animals looked like herbivores to the women. Most of them were small deer or goat-like animals. A few were large and heavily armored like rhinoceros, but without the horns on the nose. When they did see the women, the animals stood stock still, but only for a moment. Not sure whether the women were dangerous, but seemingly not taking any chances, the animals bolted away en masse. A few seconds later, the women heard loud snarling, followed by a bleating noise that was cut short. They looked toward the noise and watched as two Pidoggs took down one of the larger deer-like creatures. Miranda, wide-eyed, froze at the sight. Then she found her voice and shouted, her fear evident. Did you see that? Hush, Caitlin said in a loud whisper. Yes, I did. If we keep quiet and don't attract their attention, they shouldn't bother us now. They have their meal. Besides, they'll be a couple hundred meters from where we will be. With the other game scattered, it's less likely there'll be any other predators nearby, or I hope so. Let's keep going. Reaching the lake, Caitlin handed the rifle to Miranda and took out the water container and filter. All USF, that's United Earth Space Force personnel, had weapons training, so Caitlin wasn't worried about Miranda's marksmanship, but she was worried that Miranda might panic and not shoot when she needed to. She filled the container and backflushed the filter. The full water container was heavy and awkward to carry. Give me a hand with this, will you? Caitlin asked Miranda. Hand me the rifle and let's both grab the handle. Miranda gave the rifle to Caitlin and they began walking back side by side with the heavy load between them. They were about 100 meters from the capsule when they heard the Pidogg barking loudly, growling and snapping their teeth mixed with an even louder, more ominous roaring. Looking back toward the lake about 300 meters away, the women spotted two gigantic bear-like creatures, one larger than the other, approaching the Pidoggs at a loping run. Oh my God, Miranda exclaimed. Panic overtook her. She dropped the side of the water container and ran toward the capsule. The larger of the bear-like animals saw movement and came to a stop, but only for a moment. Caitlin looked toward the fleeing Miranda and then back at the giant creature. She was directly between them. The creature was already moving at a full run toward her. With no time to waste, she dropped the water container and ran toward the capsule as fast as she could. She still had the rifle in her right hand and knew the creature was gaining on her. She could hear the grunts getting louder and louder behind her, but she didn't dare take time to turn and look. She knew that 22 was no match for the giant beast. Miranda had made it to the capsule and waited at the open hatch. Hurry, Miranda shouted. 50 meters more. Can I make it? Caitlin was running for her life. Her shoulder-length, medium brown hair was trailing behind her. Breathing was getting harder, and her legs felt like they were running through molasses as they tried to move her trim 62 kilogram mass to safety. With 20 meters to go, Caitlin could hear the heavy breathing and rush of the grass being pushed aside as the animal gained on her. Ahead, Miranda stood with her hand on the handle, ready to close the hatch, tears running down her cheeks as she screamed for Caitlin to hurry. Everything seemed to be moving in slow motion. Miranda turned her face away. 10 meters. I'm not going to make it. Please let this be over with quickly. The hatch closed.
And it takes a long time to find out what happened. Remind me, is Miranda the cook?
Miranda was the xenobiologist. She's the one whose
Oh,
husband
she's a
was killed. Yeah.
biologist.
She's
Okay.
whose husband was killed next to Chris.
That's right. That's right. It's too bad Chris isn't here. I found it kind of funny reading through the book about Chris and
Mhm.
Jay because one of his close coworkers is Jay.
Oh,
And so the two of them, they also happen to work in quantum. So I was disappointed he couldn't be here to talk to you about the quantum you talk about in your book. I find your portrayal of women interesting. I'm curious if you get any pushback on this. I like it because they're normal. Like some of them are braver, some of them are less brave. You know, Miranda's terrified. And so much, I think especially in sci-fi, but so much of what we've gotten for 30 years is all the women are tough and strong and fearless and able to fight in heels and leather bras. Like, I don't know who walks around like that, but apparently if you're preparing to fight, you do. Was that conscious or is that just, that's how people are, so that's how you wrote them?
I tried to make it realistic,
Mhm.
you know, as much as I could, you know, real people.
Right,
People have emotions. People are not
Yep.
all strong. Not people are not all weak.
right.
You have leaders, you have followers.
Mhm.
And that's how I tried to portray it. You know, I
Yeah.
do a little bit of everything, you know, like the one who's not mentioned in my reading, Sandy,
Mhm.
she was the cook.
Right.
She has a real hard time with mental health because she was abused in a previous marriage in the book.
Mhm.
And she's traumatized.
Right.
So she traumatizes very easily.
Mhm.
So that's portrayed, you know, in the book. The doctor in there, she's a very steady person, but she has her worries because she can't fix people on this alien planet because the bugs are different. You know, the germs are
Mhm.
different, and her medicines don't work on them. So, and with Ron the engineer, whom they do have a somewhat close relationship, a developing relationship,
Mhm.
she couldn't fix his arm. He had a steam burn. It got
Right.
infected while they were on the planet, and she can't fix it. So she has her concerns also. Ron, being the engineer, he's tough, he's strong, he's kind of bullheaded, but like a lot of engineers. But the thing is he's worried too because he may lose an arm. And
Yes.
what's a man without an arm that who's used to using it all the time? That's part of his-
Especially in this world where
exactly
you
where he's needed.
need to survive.
Exactly.
Yeah.
You know, Chris was a reluctant leader. He did not want to be the leader of this, but he had the survival skills to put forth, you know, a viable situation where they could live.
Mhm.
He had the survival skills. He knew how to do it. So he was given the authority from the XO because she had survival skills, but on Earth, a little different. She had more like the evasive training thing where she could eat bugs to stay alive and, you know,
Yeah.
lick leaves, that kind of thing, you know, to get moisture. But he had more of the general survival skills, how to actually make water if you need to make water from
Right.
nothing, just a plastic sheet, a cup and a stone,
Yeah.
that kind of a thing. So he made like a compass, for example, from like a watch face. He didn't have a watch, obviously. He had a little tablet computer, and the timing was different. So he had to compute, make the tablet compute to the 28.9 hours, whatever it was I had for the hours in that particular day to make a 12-hour clock. Because you can use a regular face watch, not an analog clock. You can't use a digital watch,
Right.
but you can use that as a makeshift compass if you can see the sun.
Yeah.
So, and that's explained in the book how it's done.
Right.
So,
You know, another thing that jumped out to me, and again, I don't read a lot of sci-fi, but what I have been exposed to, what I have read, it seems like it's always extremes. Like either it's all super high tech or it's totally back to nature as the future, or it's very barren, it's very dystopian. Why do you think so many sci-fi writers write in these extremes, that the world 300 years from now is never kind of like our own? It's always vastly different.
I guess because they have a great imagination.
Okay.
They don't want it to make sound normal.
Mm-hmm.
They want to make it sound more exciting.
Mm-hmm.
And, you know, kind of like I did this exciting part, but mine was more about a survival thing, you know, where they're
Right.
trying to live and what they actually had to do to live.
Mm-hmm.
I'm not real sure. Because I didn't write like that. I mean, I kind of
Yeah.
did in my second book and my third book,
Mm-hmm.
but it wasn't to the extremes.
Yeah.
You know, I mean, we didn't have mile-high buildings or anything like that, you know,
Right.
in my books. The only thing that really is a scientific part would be the way I described how their junk technology worked.
Okay.
That's a little bit different.
This is all scientifically based, right?
Yes.
Okay, so you've researched how this could potentially be done.
Yeah.
How did you, as a writer, try to balance all this information that you must have about the technology with giving the reader enough to kind of understand, but not writing a textbook for them? Like, what would your advice to other authors be on that?
Well, for one, they have to research it. You know, don't try to make it up, because somebody who's savvy will figure it out. They'll poo-poo the book.
Yes.
They'll give you, 1 star less or something on the reviews. That was important, but I tried to weave it in such a way that was understandable for the average person. I mean, I'm not, I'm kind of scientifically minded, but I'm not, I'm not a scientist. I'm a chiropractor, so I'm biology based. But I enjoyed science. I enjoyed it while I was, going through school. I enjoyed chemistry. I enjoyed physics, that kind of thing. I'm going in college. So I kind of blended a little of that with the storyline to make it fit for the average person to be able to understand.
Yeah, that's the danger as a writer, is what they call the information dump.
Yep.
So did you find that you had to go back and remove some of that stuff?
Oh, yeah.
Okay.
Oh, yeah.
Did you have beta readers who said remove it, or did you decide on your own too?
I did have a beta reader, and they recommended some things take out because it was too, they call it expedition dump. I did a little too much of that, and so I took that out. I simplified it, and some places, because people would know what they actually were, I just totally eliminated in that part instead of trying to explain it.
Right.
So you can only do so much with that, or otherwise you'll lose the reader.
Right. Well, I had an interesting experience, and this goes back 30 years, where my first husband, who's from Ireland, was reading a book about Robin Hood, and Robin Hood and his merry men started helping themselves to all the potatoes that were not lying around medieval England, and he couldn't finish the book. He lost the suspension of disbelief. Yeah. Because being from Ireland, he knew darn well there weren't potatoes in England at the time. Right. And that was a huge lesson to me as a writer. Do your research. Yeah. Because somebody out there does know.
Yes.
So I had to ask at one point, I'm assuming this is true. Maybe it's not. They're looking for the contents of the stomach and feces to eat.
Yes.
Is that an actual survival skill? Okay.
Yes. Like, for example, I live in Michigan. And if I was lost in the Upper Peninsula someplace and I had nowhere, I think you can follow streams downstream to find a city. That's one of the ways you can find it. But if you're out there and you're really stuck, you can actually eat deer feces. It does have some nutrition, and it tastes like crap. Because it is.
Because
but
it is.
There is some nutrition in it that you can get it. Carnivores eat it. They'll go and they'll like, we have dogs in our yard, and we have rabbits in our yard at home, and they're always going after the rabbit pellets. So, because there is some nutrition in it, plus it's just a natural thing for them to do, not for us, because we're supposedly civilized and we
salt and pepper and hot sauce.
There you go.
Yeah, well, that explains. I don't think you saw our big dog out there in the yard, big white dog. We have rabbits down there. I don't know if you can see the barn from where you're sitting. And when I used to let him come running around with me, he would always get into the place where we dump the rabbit poop and we clean the trays. And I couldn't understand that. Like, why? Why would you?
Partially because it covers their scent.
Okay.
That's why they'll roll in and everything else, because they're trying to mask part of their scent, so that they can actually attack the other animals.
Really?
So, yeah.
Okay. Yeah, he actually, he's not a very good guard dog. He kind of did attack me. He didn't really attack me. I got in the middle of a dog fight, so
it's different.
That's very different. He would not be here with us if he'd attacked me, but he did attack the sheep. He's got what they call food aggression. And I guess he thought the sheep were going to eat his food. So he went after the sheep before I even got in there to separate them. So before we move on to drink number 3, what kind of puzzle games do you create?
I created a Sudoku game.
Oh, do you? I love Sudoku.
And it's on Steam. I'm trying to get it on. I need testers. Becky, you want to become a tester? I'll put you on my email list. You can test.
Yes.
You can get it for free.
Yeah, I'll do that.
But and with Memory Matrix. Do you remember the old game Concentration? Panels, flipping panels.
Kind of, sort of.
Okay, well, you flip panels back and forth. You're matching up different objects.
Okay, it's like a memory game.
It's a memory game, exactly.
The one with the cards where you
Yes.
have to, right?
Yes, you flip the
Okay.
cards over.
Yeah.
It's like a card game type
Okay.
thing. And I've created one that's not online yet. It's just a word search game. And
Okay.
there's different levels and it's kind of complex. A Sudoku game is kind of tough.
Well, what I want to do, I want to create a big frame that's like a Sudoku, but each one is an opening. And because I have 9 kids, I was going to do a Sudoku, but with the kids' faces.
Mhm.
So I have all kinds of brilliant ideas and not enough time to follow through on
Well,
them.
that'd be good for the memory game too.
Yes. Actually, between Chris and me, we have 10. So let me find the third drink. Okay, this is called the Hero's Risk Taker Dacquiri. So we are going to start with 2 ounces of overproof rum. So I have gold rum, and that's just going to have to do. We're going to put in 1 ounce of lime juice. We're going to put in 3/4 of an ounce of simple syrup. And this calls for 2 to 3 drops of absinthe or chartreuse. I have absolutely no idea how I'm going to limit this to 2 or 3 drops, but we're going to try. That was way more than 2 or 3 drops. Okay. Now we're going to shake it. We're going to put it in a chilled coupe glass. In this case, a chilled coupe glass that is not chilled. And here we have the Hero's Risk Taker Dacquiri. Cheers.
Cheers.
What do you think?
It's good.
I like this one
Yeah, I
too.
do too.
Yeah, I think this would be perfect for at the end of a long, hot day.
I agree.
It would have been especially nice in chilled glass, but next time I'll read ahead. Go ahead with reading number 3.
This is from the third
Okay.
book. It's the prologue. The second book, just briefly, is there was one more person left alive on the Copernicus. She happened to be in a compartment that's the only compartment that was not punctured by the meteors when that
Okay.
ship was going around the ship.
In addition to the 7.
In addition to the 7, exactly.
Okay, so we
He was
find
alive.
this out later.
She has no way of getting down to the planet. So
Okay,
she's on a dead ship. And she has to learn to survive.
okay,
But since the title of the book is First Alien Contact, she is kidnapped
mhm,
because she figured out how to get a signal to Earth because they're normally 11.9 light years away. It would take 11.9 years for the emergency signals to get to Earth. But she found a way to use wormholes
okay,
because there was some experiments on that were using that technology. She found a wormhole that she thought, well, maybe she could try it. So
mhm,
she made the signal and she sent it to her, or sent it to the wormhole. And 4 months later, they got her at Earth. And so they mounted the rescue mission.
okay,
So the survivors actually from the first book ended up on another ship. In the second book, yes, a
Uh-huh.
brand new ship
okay,
hasn't gone through its trials yet.
okay,
But because of the emergency situation, there's one person left alive and it's the only way that they can possibly rescue her. They take that ship out to try to rescue her. Well, in the meantime, they have a lot of problems with the ship on the way getting there. But there's aliens. The aliens managed to get there about the same time, actually just ahead of the Earthlings.
mhm,
And they managed to kidnap this gal. Their ship is slightly disabled and they tried to mount a rescue mission to try to get her. In the meantime, this other ship was attacking our ship.
okay,
So they had to defend themselves. Then there was another alien race that had came in that also got that signal and came basically to our rescue. That we didn't really need the rescuing, but it helped.
okay,
But that's how the first alien contact actually is made.
okay,
So in the third book, there's an enemy that these other aliens called the Andranis. Is how I named them. These are a very benevolent race. They're like 1 million years old.
mhm,
They're a very, very old race. They're very peaceful. They had another race head from a different galaxy found a large enough wormhole to come in our galaxy, and they attacked
Mhm.
them.
okay,
Well, we defeated them, or I should say the Andranis defeated them, and they were basically stuck on this side of the wormhole because the Andranis destroyed their supply route.
okay.
So
So there's a lot going on.
there was a lot going on, exactly. And so for 1,000 years, these people, they lived in asteroids, and then he finally found the world, and then their world ends up dying because the sun is going to die.
Mhm,
And so they're trying to find a way of, making another world for themselves. but they carried this grudge from 1,000 years ago. And they managed to use a technique that no one has ever thought of to attack our ships, and ships start dying all over the universe, all over our galaxy, I should say, exploding for no reason. And so, anyway, this is the very beginning of the book.
Okay.
Confusion and pain caused Lezah to blink hard as he strained to see through blurred vision. He gingerly shook his head, trying to clear the cobwebs. It throbbed as if it had a heartbeat of its own. His body ached. He licked his lips and tasted the coppery tang of blood, the scent of it stronger through what air passed through the clots in his nostrils. He coughed. Pain shot through his chest, and wide-eyed he gasped for air through the bloody phlegm. His labored breathing sounded raspy and unnaturally loud. He heard a slight click as he inhaled and exhaled. He closed his eyes and slowly reached to rub them, his movements hindered by pain and something blocking his reach. He opened his eyes. His unfocused spots of light obliquely crossed his field of vision in slow motion. Unable to reach his eyes, he shook his head despite the pain and blinked hard several more times. His vision gradually cleared with each blink. The ambiguous light slowly resolved into winking pinpoints seen through a spray of blood inside the visor from the cough. Lezah, yet one of the few EVA qualified astrophysics technicians, vaguely remembered reaching to replace one of the many malfunctioning sensors that surrounded the bow of the spaceship that repair Autobots were unable to handle due to the fragility of each sensor. He realized that he, in a spacesuit, was in a slow, uncoordinated tumble while still clutching the extraction tool that was tied to his thickly gloved hand. Lezah carefully reached to his right side and slid his hand down to the joystick attached to his work belt. Pushing while twisting the handle and depressing a button that triggered measured bursts of propellants from his jets on his belt and his backpack, he stabilized the spin, moaning in pain with every sustained burst. Suddenly, something struck him on his left shoulder from behind, which set him to cough and spit again. He clenched his teeth and worked through the pain to quickly stop the gyration and search through the blood-covered visor to see what it was that hit him. His face registered shock as he gawked at the stiff and frozen body of the cook who had prepared his breakfast that morning as it slowly tumbled away. The technician shuddered and chilled as an overwhelming sense of dread nearly incapacitated him. An involuntary moan of fear escaped his swollen and bleeding lips. He twisted the maneuvering handle and pushed the button to rotate in place. With open mouth, he gaped at gradually widening debris field spreading from the wreckage of what was once a spaceship that had been his duty station for the last 2 annual cycles. He could feel his heart hammering in his chest, and his breath caught at the sudden realization that when the air ran out, he would die. He made several calls on his comms, nothing, not even static. The radio was dead silent. Not one to give up hope easily, Lezah used controlled bursts from his jetpack to maneuver to the larger sections of debris in hoping of finding intact compartments with people still alive, or possibly an escape pod that was not damaged to extend his life and give him the ability to call for help. Instead, he found 2 intact EVA packs with full oxygen and maneuvering thruster charges that he could exchange when the one he was wearing ran out, which allowed him more time to search. His ship was large, even by Andrenian standards, and that gave him confidence that surely there must be others alive. However, the destruction was complete. He was the sole survivor. Not knowing what cataclysmic event could cause the ship's demise, and in hopes of someone discovering the wreckage and his body, Lezah had carefully scanned the debris field with his camera in his helmet. He gave a running narrative of his findings during the search and documented the tragedy's approximate time and date. He glanced above the visor inside his helmet to check the level of his depleting oxygen reserves. Not much left. While in great pain due to fits of coughing with broken ribs and fighting exhaustion, he began a farewell message to his family. Naeth, his voice cracked in the helmet. Naeth, my love, I do not know if this recording will ever reach you. I hope that it does. He swallowed against the blood in his throat. I'm the only one left. The ship is gone. Everyone is gone. He paused. A cough seized him, and for several seconds he could not speak. When it passed, he blinked hard and tilted his head, trying to find a clear spot in the visor to see through the spray of blood. Tell the children that their father thought of them. Tell Saban that I am sorry I will miss his acceptance ceremony. He worked so hard for it. I know he will make us proud. Another pause. His breathing was shallow now. Each inhaled accompanied by the faint click of the regulator that had become the metronome of his remaining life. Tell Mira that the stars are beautiful from out here. She always asked me what they look like up close. They look the same as from home, actually, just brighter. And there are so many of them. His voice softened. Naeth, do you remember the night I asked you to bond with me? We were on the observation platform above the northern sea, and the aurora was so bright that it cast our shadows on the deck. You said that you would think about it. He managed a small, painful laugh that turned into a wince. You made me wait 3 days. I thought I would go mad. When you finally said yes, I couldn't speak. You had to say it twice because I just stood there with my mouth open. He closed his eyes and let the memory hold him for a moment. Her face in the aura light, the warmth of her hand when she reached for his. He inhaled. The click sounded. He exhaled. The click sounded again. He inhaled. Silence. The click did not come. The regulator had nothing left to give. Lezah's eyes widened for a moment, an instinctive flash of panic that he forced down with the discipline of a man who spent his career in the vacuum. He would not let this last moment be fear. He closed his eyes deliberately. I love you all, he whispered. The words fogged the visor one final time. He made peace with his deity in the silence of his own mind. The cold was coming now. Not the cold of space, which the suit still held at bay, but a deeper cold, the kind that starts in the fingertips and works inward. He did not fight it. He let the memories come instead. Naeth's face, save and serious eyes bent over the studies, Mira's laughter, bright and careless, ringing through the rooms of their home. The memories dimmed. The stars continued to shine through the bloody visor, indifferent and eternal, as Lezah Yates drifted among the wreckage and was still. From the shadowed bridge of a cloaked warship, an alien commander observed the scene. The Andreni's technician was insignificant, a mere speck among the wreckage, yet the survivor's determination intrigued them. The test is complete, the commander intoned in the native tongue. His voice carried a calm, mechanical precision. Other than the loss of the weapon because the ship was destroyed before it could depart the area, it functioned as designed. Prepare the fleet for the next phase.
This scene, normally I have the ratings on time to prepare the interview, but by dumb luck, this scene actually highlighted two things that jumped out at me in the other books. One is, I have never in science fiction seen any reference to faith. And a few times, it's just a line, they sent up a prayer and you mention it here, thought of his deity. Why did you put that in? Or more importantly, why do most sci-fi writers envision a world without faith in the future?
I don't know. It's something that maybe it's just the way they believe. I believe so.
Yeah. So do you think that more atheist minds are more drawn to sci-fi?
I think that a lot of the scientific, scientists that enter into physics and that, they are like that.
Okay.
I know that some of the scientists that I watched on TV, they are like that. They don't believe.
Right. Okay.
They just think, oh, that's it. Once you're gone, you're gone.
Right. Yeah. And I'd say an awful lot of my friends do. But that just jumped out at me that I don't think I've ever seen any reference to any faith, although I think that's typical of a lot of secular fiction in general. That the world's very divided between secular fiction and Christian fiction. Long story, but that's one of the reasons I went with indie publishing was that's not the way we are. Even atheists think about faith. So I wish more books just, kind of gave that nod to this is who we are. Most people do think about faith. But I was also struck you sent me the first book and you have 3 total now, right?
Yes.
How positive the people were. And it wasn't in a Pollyanna sort of way, but I think it's Chris and Jay are sitting and looking at the sunset. Is that right?
Yeah, Chris and Ron.
Chris and Ron.
Yes.
And they're in this horrible situation, they don't know how long their food is going to last. They figure they're never going to be rescued. And they're admiring the sunset and saying how beautiful it is.
It's a mindset. I think that you have to accept what it is. It is what it is. And you're not going to be able to change it. All you can do is deal with what you've got. And that's what they're trying to do.
Right.
We're trying to, there was no, like I said, in my books, I don't have anything. There's no magic. There's no superheroes to come rescue them. Everything is based on what they've got in front of them. So they, they make bows and arrows, they make spears, that kind of thing. They use their survival knives, for just about everything. So you just have to deal with what you've got. And that's what I did. Like I said before, when I wrote the book, I put myself in, like you did, in a box, put myself in a situation. I had to figure my way out of it.
Right.
And I did it in a way that was logical and feasible.
Yeah. And I just, I really appreciated that they can see the good. And I hope that inspires some people. You know, some people tend to naturally see the dark side of everything.
Glass half empty versus half full.
Right, right. I used to say if someone I knew, if they won $1 million, they'd complain about the taxes. That would be the first thing they'd do. Of course, then I found out how much taxes are, and I'm like, oh no, I might be that person. No, I'd love to win $1 million. I found the Civil Air Patrol interesting because my dad actually taught for Civil Air Patrol in Minnesota. What do you do as a squadron and group commander?
Civil Air Patrol is run almost exactly like the Air Force. We have the same customs, the same courtesies. We teach cadets basically the same thing. You know, in fact, if they get into the officer ranks, they jump 2 ranks ahead right in boot camp. They go right to an E3 instead of E1. The squadron commander runs the squadron. Okay, he's in charge of everything that has to do with the squadron. They have finances. They have everything. They have bookkeeping. They have to do. There's ranks that have to be made. There's certain positions that have to be filled. And it was my responsibility to make sure that everything was done correctly.
You're okay, so you are associated with the Air Force.
Yes, it is the Air Force, U.S. Air Force Auxiliary.
But so kids can start as young as 14, right?
You can start at 12.
Oh, 12, really?
Yeah. You can start as early as 12.
What age are these kids actually learning to fly?
They can start, actually, we would do cadet orientation flights for the cadets. We'd have them right at their 12 years old. They would sit in the right seat.
Right.
You know, and they get just a little intro into flying, you know, how to fly an airplane, how to control an airplane. We let them, you know, handle the airplane, you know, turn a little bit that way.
Right.
Bring it up,
well, to be fair, my dad had his pilot's license. So back when we lived in Germany, which was until I was 5.5, almost 6, he used to go to the, I forget what they call it, but they had a club on base where they could use the planes and they could fly. And so he used to take me and my sister up. And so here I am, like 4 years old, you know, and I had my hands on the wheel and he'd let go and go, you're in charge. Yeah. And I did the dumbest possible thing, but I was 4. Oh no, I can't fly. So I'm probably lucky to be sitting here alive, but he probably had control of the plane. So yeah. So at what age do they actually start flying on their own? I mean, not solo necessarily.
They can solo as soon as they get qualified. They can solo. 16, 15, 16 years old.
Okay.
I don't believe they can get their license until they're 18.
Okay.
But they can solo. As far as I'm not sure.
Okay.
To be honest with you, because I was not an instructor. I was just one of the pilots. They'd say, "Okay, you're going on an orientation flight." I said, "Okay, who am I taking?" And then we go up and we do our little thing around, you know, the practice area. And then we come back and we land. Do a few touch and goes, you know, still show them what it's like to touch and go. Right. That kind of thing for emergency procedure. We sometimes throw a little of that in there just to show them this is what happens if this is what you have to do if this happens. You know, you have an engine out, you can pull the throttle back, you know, and then the engine can just kind of glide a little bit. So, and you can land without power. Right. So we would just do that, you know, for them. And give you just an experience of flying.
So I think my dad's closest call was he was up flying one day, and this was in Germany, you know, circa 1971. I don't remember what went wrong with the plane, but he had to land immediately. And the only place he had to land was the Autobahn. Well, you know, cars go faster than the planes there anyway. But he ended up coming in and landing behind this poor guy in a car who looked in his rear view mirror, and there's this plane barreling down the highway behind him. So what has your most exciting adventure or closest call been with the plane?
I had lost a vacuum pump while I was flying. In fact, my wife was with me. We were coming back from South Carolina, and it was a rented airplane, and the vacuum pump went out. And so you lose your directional gyro. And so you have to rely on the compass. Okay. And when you're bouncing through the air, because you know, it's almost like riding down Michigan roads, because all the turbulence and stuff that's up there, your compass is bouncing all over, and it's real difficult to you know, use. Right. So I had the VOR. It's a radio beacon. Basically, you're following that. So I would use that basically to you know, head towards. But you still have your altimeter, and you have all your gauges, so it wasn't so bad. Okay. But that was pretty much it. I've never had an emergency other than that. Okay. So
would you say that's pretty typical? That you can spend a lifetime flying and not have a real serious emergency?
Well, it's rare do you have to. I mean, if you consider all the hours that pilots fly, it's much better record than what people having
Cars.
automobiles.
Right. Well, and that's part of the reason I asked, because so many people have such a fear of flying, but I've always heard that statistically, you're actually much safer in a
Yes.
plane
Yeah.
than driving to work. The joke when I went to Ireland, my first son was born there, was statistically, you're most likely to be killed in a car accident 25 miles from your home or within 25 miles. So the joke was always, I'm 3,000 miles from home, I'm safe. You guys might die, but I'm safe.
There was one incident. In fact, my wife was with me again. As we were flying, and we were under Detroit's
I think you
airspace.
got to quit taking your wife with you.
We were flying into Detroit airspace, and so we were under, an air traffic controller's control. And I was flying at a certain level, and so the airplane came at me, and it was like, we were probably within 100 feet of each other. And the aircraft traffic controller said nothing. And I immediately saw something, took evasive action. The other guy just kept running on going, I don't think he saw me. So but we came within about 100 feet.
That's very close in airplane terms.
So even though you're underneath, the umbrella of the air traffic control, you still have to keep your eyes off the aircraft.
Right. Yeah. So what's next for you for writing?
Well, I kind of left an opening from the third book. In the second book, it's described where they're on their way back, and it's kind of like a ghost ship penetrates through their ship.
Oh wow!
And it's from a different dimension. One of our ships, when they were first learning how to fly faster than light, it got stuck, and they just went right through it. And all these people are poised in a certain position where they did not, they weren't moving. So it's like frozen in time. But this ghostly apparition goes all the way through the whole ship. So, and in the end, the way these aliens, the ones who are the bad guys, their way that their method of travel, they had actually experienced something like that, and so they were familiar with it. So there's a possibility I could go into a fourth book.
So where can people find you online?
Well, they can go to Amazon. They go to Charles P. Graham, and if they type the word "survive" with my name, they'll find my books that way.
Okay.
You
have a website, right?
I do have a website, charlespgraham.com. You can see it from there, and you click on the link, and it'll take you right to the Amazon site. Okay.
You can find me and Chris. Chris is usually here at booksandbrews.net. For all our authors, we are at YouTube at Symbol Books and Brews, where you'll find Books and Brews Light. Most of them are not on our website. You can find me at lauravosica.com. You can find all those chickens, rabbits, and sheep at glenmerrillfarms.wordpress.com. And next month, we have an explosive interview with Barry Black, who's retired from the FBI with 31 years of experience as an investigator, SWAT sniper, and master bomb technician. So I'm sure that he will love to talk about all of that. I'm looking forward to it.